Well, thanks everyone. I'm just going to go right into answering questions.
All right. How did you think it went?
I thought it went well. I think the Ontario Greens were successful in delivering a message that Doug Ford has abandoned rural and northern communities. You have a government that's wasting money, $2.2 billion on spas in downtown Toronto, tens of billions of dollars on a tunnel under the 401, $10+ billion on Highway 413, things that people in Toronto don't even want. Meanwhile, up here in Northern Ontario, roads aren't being built. People don't have access to health care. People don't have access to homes they can afford. The education system is overcrowded. The mental health and addictions crisis is worse here in Northern Ontario than even in Southern Ontario. We need a government that's actually going to put the needs of everyday people ahead of their own political interests and the interests of wealthy, well-connected land speculators, and I think that was the message we delivered today.
What about a Northern Ontario solution to say things like, we talked about the Northlander, it's been 7 years in the making, hasn't happened yet, and that could also tie into highway safety issues if more people are on trains than they are in cars.
Yeah, 100%. Premier Ford, he said he would have the Northlander back. 7 years later, it still isn't back. He said he would end hallway health care. 7 years later, it's twice as worse. He said he would build 1.5 million homes for people. 7 years later, we don't have those homes. Over and over again, this government has said they would deliver things and they've actually failed to get them done for Northerners.
What was your strategy going into this debate?
My strategy was to really put forward the solutions around how the Ontario Greens are going to bring fairness back to Ontario. It's really unfair that we have a provincial government wasting billions and billions of dollars in the GTA while people in Northern Ontario and rural parts of the province can't keep their roads and bridges open, can't find homes they can afford, don't have access to health care, their classrooms are overcrowded, and you have a premier, the premier talks about protecting Ontario. I think we need to protect Ontario from Doug Ford's attack on our nature, our farmland, the places we love in Ontario.
Has the environment and climate change taken a backseat? Is that an afterthought in 2025?
Well, I actually think that our plan to build 2 million homes that people can afford in the communities they know and love both addresses people's affordability concerns, which is the number one issue I hear at the door, their anxiety around economic uncertainty that we're facing, and climate. Because if you actually build homes that people can afford and they can avoid long, expensive commutes, it reduces pollution, it protects the places we love, and it makes your life more affordable.
Can we get your reaction on Ford's Sparky comment?
Yeah, you know what? I think I made it very clear today that a premier who says he's actually going to throw people experiencing homelessness in jail, combined with a premier who appears to be making jokes about bringing back the death penalty, is not the kind of premier that's going to build the caring, fair Ontario that I believe the people of this province want. I think it is cruel for this premier to make jokes about the death penalty and to talk about putting people experiencing homelessness in jail. We have more humane, more loving and caring solutions we can provide, especially when it comes to housing people, our neighbors, moms, dads, sons, daughters, nieces, and nephews who need help. And we need a premier who's not going to make jokes about the death penalty.
This campaign, it seems like your biggest fight is over 3 ridings, primarily. Why should people in the rest of the province vote Green?
Well, I think the Ontario Greens are fighting hard in a number of ridings where we have local champions who are going to be the voice of their constituents, advocating for people in their ridings over being the voice of the leader or the premier in their riding. I look at ridings like Parry Sound Muskoka. I tell Matt Richter all the time, I'm not your boss. The premier's not your boss. The people of Parry Sound Muskoka is your boss. Wellington Halton Hills, Bronwyn Wilton, a local councillor, who be a strong advocate, especially on food and farming issues. Bruce Grey Sound, local councillor Joe Lougheed. Again, another local champion who's going to be the advocate for his community, not the leader's voice in his riding. I look at Dufferin-Caledon, former mayor of Orangeville, Sandy Brown. We have Chris Rivard right here, and Timiskaming running for us. We have a number of strong candidates all around the province, and what separates Green candidates from all 3 of the other parties We're not a leader-centric party. I'm not their boss. You, their constituents, are their boss.
Mike, can I get your comment on Doug Ford's saying he won't build a house on a blade of grass or a dandelion or whatever that was?
Yeah, I think if there's anyone on the stage today, and if you listen at Queen's Park, the person who has been the boldest on delivering solutions to address the housing crisis has been the Ontario Greens and Mike Schreiner. I'm the one who's trying to get Doug Ford to say yes to removing the zoning rules that prevent us from building homes that people can afford in the communities they love. I'm the one trying to get the Premier to say yes to a first-time homebuyers plan, to take fees off and taxes off of homes, to save first-time homebuyers up to $150,000, while at the same time having an affordable communities fund so that municipalities have the money to build infrastructure. I'm the one who's been telling Doug Ford we have to protect renters. I'm the one who's been telling him we have to build affordable and deeply affordable nonprofit, co-op, and supportive housing. He said no to all those things. So for the Premier to stand up here and say, I'm not interested in building homes is absolutely wrong. And I would say to the people of this province, we need a Premier who's going to say yes to housing. I'm that person.
Can I get a comment from just to follow up on that? Sorry. Was it a lie, what he said about you not wanting to build homes on grass?
I want to build homes, and some of those homes will be built on grass. They will be built on dandelions. They will be built in the communities we love. I don't want you to have to move away from the community you grew up in, or I don't want you to have a long, expensive commute to get to work. I want you to have an affordable home close to your family, close to where you grew up, close to where you work.
Can I get a comment from you on a topic not addressed today, the post-secondary education at Ontario colleges?
Yeah, no, it is a critical issue. And when I talked about especially the importance of modernizing the forestry sector, but I would say work and the importance of training workers, not only in forestry, construction, nursing, healthcare, across the board, the cuts we're seeing to post-secondary education is going to do real damage to students. You're already seeing colleges in this province closing down programs, critical programs that are necessary for training workers and making our economy good. The Ontario Greens have a plan to start restoring the base budget funding back to our colleges and universities. Our young people deserve that. It's critically important to our economy. But unfortunately, under the Ford government, you're seeing college and university programs cut, and you're seeing it becoming increasingly more difficult for students to even get admitted into college and university.
One last question. Mr. Schreiner?
Yep.
Sorry, you did a whole bit on northern issues today. Talked about highway safety.
Yes.
Not one of you mentioned the carnage on the northern highways caused by poorly trained drivers, especially those in transport trucks.
Yep.
What do you have to say about that, sir?
Yeah, we absolutely need to have standardized MTO testing of transport truck drivers. We have to ensure those drivers are properly trained, can pass tests, and are safe on our roads, because we've seen far too much carnage on northern highways, and far too often it's transport trucks that are involved in that.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Next is Bonnie. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Even closer, hi.
I feel like I just walked out of the gallery. I've seen this before.
First of all, maybe your comment about these posts by your Thunder Bay Superior North candidate, appearing to support some of the things from Jian Gomeshi, even something about Bill Cosby.
So the candidate has apologized for the tweets, and there's one thing we share in common, and he wants to defeat Doug Ford and ensure that everyone in Ontario has access to a family doctor.
Why are you keeping him on?
Because I think this was a long time ago, and that he's a representative, he's an elected official today, and he's apologized.
Crombie, can you
Yes.
Can you reiterate your stance on transportation? A little bit of moans from the crowd when you mentioned the Northland and the Liberal support for it.
I think that came from the minister who lives here. You know, as I've said before, I support the Northlander. I wouldn't have supported the decision to cut it, and it should be back. I know I've heard for 7 years that it's coming back, yet I don't see it in operation. I support the Northlander. I would like it to be operative, and yes, I'm completely committed to ensuring that the Northlander is back.
Bonnie, many of the
and
ridings
funded.
in the north, especially this one, had a heck of a time getting candidates. This was a riding that had a two-time cabinet minister elected back-to-back, and they had to get more or less a parachute candidate to come in. And there's other ridings in this area or south of us that have had trouble getting candidates. How do you explain that?
Yeah, well, I'm a new leader, and of course, is either have been either government-held ridings or have deep ties to the NDP. But I think the good news is our message is getting through, and you know, people are very open to the fact that we are going to provide the basics for them. You know, we're not about fantasy tunnels under the 401 and giving $2 billion to a foreign company, a foreign spa at Ontario Place. We're going to get you a family doctor. If there's one thing I am going to do is ensure that everyone in Ontario has a family doctor. We're going to recruit doctors, so even in the north you have adequate coverage. We're going to hire nurses and PSWs. I'm going to cut your taxes.
How do you plan to hire, I'm sorry, given the
Yeah.
dire shortages of doctors and nurses across Ontario and the incredibly long wait times, again, across the province, not just necessarily North America or Northern Ontario issue. Saying it and doing it are two massively different things.
Yeah, a massive commitment is required, and it's my #1 priority. And I have a plan that lays it out and how we will hire 3,100 new doctors. So yes, some long-term will increase the number of medical schools. We'll double the number of residency plans because there are foreign trained doctors, including our own children, who sometimes go abroad to get trained in the US and the UK, even Poland, who want to come back but don't have a residency spot open for them. We're going to incentivize doctors on the cusp of retiring to stay on a little longer, and we're going to put more doctors through the mentorship program, better known as the Practice Ready Ontario. It all adds up to 3,100 new doctors. We will incentivize them to serve long-term in more rural, remote areas, northern communities, and in francophone communities as well, to ensure that the needs of our francophone communities are met.
What's your reaction to the Eglinton Lawrence candidate, the NDP candidate there, dropping out at the last minute and encouraging people to vote Liberal?
Yeah, I don't know all the details. I know that I have an excellent candidate there, Vince Gasparo, and I think he's going to win. So I'm not going to speak about other parties and other candidates.
Bonnie,
Can you clarify what it is that you would upload from municipalities to the province?
So for instance, mental health, housing, homelessness, addiction issues, that requires a strategy, a province-wide strategy. It's been left on the shoulders of individual municipal leaders. I see, and I was driving that point in the debate, that I see mayors and reeves, you know, using their own devices, coming up with strategies that will work in their own towns. Then we get together in meetings and we share best practices, what's worked. That's not acceptable. That shouldn't be on the back of the property taxpayer. There needs to be a coordinated strategy led by the province and properly funded by the province.
Can you also clarify what your party's going to do about development charges? I believe your platform says only some homes will see them exempted. I think
Yes,
in the
I believe.
debate you said that they all would.
Well, family-size homes of 3,000 square feet or less will see the exemption of development charges. I call those the hidden taxes upon closing. It'll help make the cost of building, and of course that is a very large home nonetheless. We didn't want to subsidize the building of the monster homes. It's a good size family home, so on 3,000 square feet or less, we will remove those hidden taxes at the closing. It will help drop the cost of development, of building, and it will also drop the price to the consumer. Yet I have a plan through the Better Communities Fund to ensure that the municipalities are made whole.
What's your response on this video of Doug Ford at the police gala with those sparky comments?
Well, you know, what can I say? The Premier, he always flip-flops. You know, he says one thing one place, and then he says something else. We've heard him make statements when he thinks he's in a private setting on opening up the Greenbelt, and then he assured us he wouldn't, and then he went and tried to do it. So he flip-flops all the time. So it's really, it speaks to his character. We're never really sure where he stands. Is it Doug Ford that you saw at the police gala, or is it the Doug Ford that said, oh no, his staff said he doesn't stand by that statement? So he flip-flops. I think it's bringing U.S. style politics here to Canada, which I don't support and I don't like whatsoever. And he'll have to wear those comments. Obviously, I don't agree with them.
That it was a joke.
It's a pretty serious matter to joke about, I would say. I think it speaks to character. I think he was in a room he thought was friendly, and he felt that he could say what he wanted, much like that dinner he had with developers when he told them he would open up the Greenbelt. That's what I think it shows.
Can I get your thoughts, please, on strong colleges, a strong post-secondary sector in Ontario?
Well, we know that this provincial government doesn't properly fund our post-secondary institutions, that, you know, they're funding their operating rates at about 30%. In other provinces, it's up to 60%. So I think we need strong colleges to prepare our kids for the jobs of tomorrow. And I believe strongly in post-secondary education would fund it properly. Now, if your follow-up question is going to ask me, am I going to raise tuition? That is not my plan. I think our youth are struggling. We have to find every means we can to ensure they go to school. And so as a result, we're going to increase the OSAP that's permitted. We're going to take the interest off it. We're going to lengthen the amount of time to pay it back, and we're going to increase the threshold from $30,000 to $50,000 at which starts required to pay it back. And may I finish? And then we're going to create 40,000 jobs for those young people through co-op positions, internships, placements, etc., to ensure they can start working. Thank you.
You plan on financing the University of Sudbury?
I'm a big fan of University of Sudbury. I think you should be funded. I know there's a relationship right now with Laurentian, and we will speak more about that, but I feel very strongly that we need French language education here in Sudbury and in the north. In Sudbury and
last question. Bonnie, there's a few instances today where you tried to debate the Premier about his housing record, and he essentially threw your own, as Mayor Mississauga, back in your face. Just wondering, would you have done anything differently now to have got more homes built in Mississauga that you would?
I will say that I spent almost 10 years as mayor, and it's just been in most recent that we've really felt the crisis that evolved with our housing and the need to get more housing built quickly, and housing that's affordable, not just, my city was built around a 4-bedroom family home with a picket fence, but that's not appropriate for starter homes or newcomers or seniors. So I think as mayor, I really embraced density and intensification and embraced public transit, and was the first mayor to introduce fourplexes as of right into our city, and I think we are moving in that direction, and I feel very strongly. And so when it came to our housing platform, I recognized the need to build more homes, affordable homes, and to do it faster. And how can we get that done? How can we lower the cost of building, lower the price to the consumer, and also make the cities whole at the same time? That was my goal, because I knew that's what I had faced when I was mayor. And we did it. And I'm so proud of my team, and I hope others emulate the plan. And I think some have.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. First of all, your response to your candidate from Eglinton Lawrence dropping out at the last second there, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, obviously, and I mean, I really believe that everybody, including the folks in Eglinton Lawrence, deserve to have a candidate who reflects their values, an NDP candidate to vote for.
Were you given a heads up at all?
No.
How soon, how close to the deadline did that happen?
I don't know, actually. So all
But
I
it's
know
like
is
day
that they've
of.
made decision. Yeah, I think so.
How do you feel about that candidate supporting the Liberal Party?
I mean, honestly, look, as I said, I think that everybody should be able to vote for a candidate that shares their values. I think for many of the folks who are going to be supporting us, the current Liberal leader in particular just does not reflect their values, or frankly, the values of many past Liberal voters.
What do you think of Doug Ford's comment about the Sparky? Send them to the Spark.
Well, look, I mean, this is Doug Ford, right? He says one thing in front of the public and then another thing behind closed doors, and he does it over and over again. He has shown us who he is. I will say, I think they're disgusting and inappropriate comments. But look, as Premier, Ontarians can count on me to always be clear about where I stand on issues that are very close to the values of Canadians, including that one.
Ms. Stiles, you criticized Premier Ford on his moving in to remove encampments and saying that there's nowhere for them to go. What's the plan for the NDP to help people facing housing issues?
Yeah. Well, look, you can move people from one park to another park, but you're going to move them out of one, they're just going to go to another. The solution to homelessness is housing, without question. And so we have a plan. It's one of our priorities to build truly deeply affordable housing. And a big part of that is 60,000 supportive housing units with wraparound support, which is what we really need to get people who are, many of them who are in encampments or living homeless, a safe place where they can have wraparound supports.
Just as a follow-up, for injection sites, are you for those?
You know, as I said, look, I think what Doug Ford has done in taking away resources and supports rather than you don't take any resources and supports away from people who are desperate, where we are losing lives every day, without replacing it with more and better. Doug Ford talked a lot today about the need for things like rehab, but I just don't see those beds. People are waiting for months, if not years, for those spaces. When somebody is asking for help or support, they need it right away. It's absolutely essential where they need it, when they need it.
There's a flip side to that coin, though. People are feeling less safe in communities. They're seeing
absolutely.
homeless people downtown. They're seeing people that have obviously mental health or drug abuse issues downtown, and people feel in cities like North Bay and probably many others are frightened to go downtown, and they don't even want to go downtown.
Yeah,
and merchants feel the
hey.
same way. How do you fix that? Is it fixable?
Look, I mean, the solution, and we have a crisis. There is no question. Every community that I visit in Ontario, there is a homelessness and addiction crisis, a mental health crisis. It is in every corner of this province. After 7 years, it is worse than ever before. It was bad already, and it's worse than ever before. It's an epidemic, and it's a crisis. And Doug Ford and his government are not treating it with the importance that they need to and the priority. We should be acting like it's a crisis and putting those supports into communities right away. Instead, what we have is Doug Ford giving out a little bit of money and making municipalities compete for limited resources. That is not the answer. Municipalities shouldn't have to do that. The resources should be there right now. And that's the solution. It's housing. It's housing and it's healthcare. And neither of those things are things that Doug Ford really wants to talk about, because the truth is that in Doug Ford's Ontario, healthcare is in a crisis. It's worse than it's ever been. And more and more people cannot afford housing.
How does that correlate to the safety issue, though?
Oh, absolutely. Well, because we need to address it with the supports, getting people the support they need right away, getting them into shelter, getting them housing, getting them the health care they need. And that might mean a rehabilitation. It might mean detox, but these are the supports that people need, and they need it urgently. And I can't stress that enough, because as I said during the debate, we're losing lives, but these are our brothers, our sisters, our nephews, our nieces, right? These are our children. We need, and everybody I talk to when I'm in communities will say, yes, this is a huge crisis, no question. But we want people to get the care they need. That is the priority that I'm hearing from Ontarians.
Marit, today the PC leader seemed to dismiss a number of things that you said by saying that, you would raise taxes, or you're in favor of taxes. You've announced a number of, big ticket promises. Do you plan to raise government revenues in some way, cut other things? Can you just talk about that financial piece?
Doug Ford doesn't want to talk about his record. That's what's going on here, right? He doesn't want to talk about real solutions. This is the third election where Doug Ford has talked, for example, about reopening the Northlander. Where is it? This is the third election he's talked about building homes. Where are they? This is the third election where he's talked about fixing hallway healthcare. It's worse than it's ever been before. It was bad under the Liberals. This government has poured gasoline all over it. So 3 elections in a row. He has promised Ontarians these things, and every single thing has just gotten worse and not better. And he doesn't want to talk about his record. My interest is in shifting things from some of his terrible plans, his bad deals and his scandals, and into investments that actually are going to take care of Ontarians. Building homes, truly deeply affordable homes that people need right now. Fixing our healthcare crisis. I mean, my goodness, I've been coming to Northern Ontario for 30 plus years, and it is worse than it has ever been, and it has always been a bit of a problem up here. So we've got to do something about this. 800 kilometers between Timmins and Thunder Bay, there is one delivery unit. One place where a woman can give birth. Think about that. Think about what's coming, the tragedy that is coming. We have to do something about it, and we have to do something now.
Charlie's question was about taxes. Can you please answer?
Yeah, no, I think, look, first of all, we're not talking about raising taxes at all. And in fact, what we're going to do is offer people a grocery rebate so that they have more money in their pocket, lower and middle income people, so they can afford food, because the cost of everything is through the roof. There's no question. Doug Ford is putting aside, what, $80 billion or something for this fake tunnel under the 401. I'm scrapping that deal. Okay, I'm scrapping that deal, and I'm actually going to invest money where it can be the most use to the most people, which is things like a grocery rebate. It's like actually building truly deeply affordable housing. And it's actually making sure we create those medical school spaces, for example, to hire the doctors that we need in the province of Ontario.
How much does it matter if you're down one candidate, if you don't have a full slate?
Look, I mean, obviously, like, we had a full slate. I want a full slate, but at this point, for me, it's, look, we're focused very much on where we can flip blue seats to orange. That's what I'm doing, and I'm finding that in the communities where we need to flip those seats, we are seeing a lot of momentum building. Sault Ste. Marie I mentioned the other day, but I'm in Sault Ste. Marie a couple days ago in the middle of a snowstorm. 200 people show up just to show their support. Like, it's out there, and I feel like people are just starting to wake up to the election a little bit right now, which is common. But especially when Doug Ford called a snap election. I think Doug Ford thought people were just going to sleep through this, that he was going to pull one over on them. And I think Ontarians see what life is like under Doug Ford. After 7 years, life has never been tougher than it is before, and I think people are ready for a change.
Marit, you talked about the 2 elections, though. Doug Ford won a big majority in 2018,
Yeah.
won an even bigger majority in 2022. So if all these people are unhappy with him, why does he keep getting reelected?
Well, we'll see, won't we? We'll see in a couple weeks what happens. I think people are tired of the lines that he was feeding out there today, you know, because they know what's happening in their lives, right? He says that he's building homes and he's helping the economy, but the truth is that we've lost manufacturing jobs. The truth is that here in Northern Ontario, people have seen him make choices to send jobs to the United States instead of jobs that could have gone here to Northern Ontario, to say Thunder Bay. We've seen it over and over again. He makes choices to favor his friends, wealthy people, insiders, against the interests of Ontarians. And I think the proof is in the pudding right now. Life is tougher than it's ever been. The cost of everything is through the roof, and 2.5 million Ontarians don't have a family doctor. Nobody that I'm talking to is saying life is so much better under Doug Ford. Maybe Galen Weston is the only one who can say that, but I haven't met many people who can. So I think it's time for a change, and people are tired of the same old promises that he makes every election but never delivers on.
Can I get your thoughts on a strong post-secondary college system?
Yes. Yeah, and here we are, right, in the middle of one of a post-secondary institution, and what I'm hearing all across the province of Ontario is people are really afraid. Our colleges and universities are in extremely difficult place right now. Doug Ford and the Conservatives have underfunded post-secondary education to the lowest level of any province in Canada. And that underfunding is really catching up with us now. So colleges are cutting programs, and not just any programs that we need to build the workforce that we need right now and for the future. This is absolutely essential, and for us, investing in and bringing up the funding for post-secondary institutions, support supporting our students is part of our plan to tariff-proof Ontario, because we need to build the skilled workforce and the economy of the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.